Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good to see you. Hello, 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 hello. Yes, good morning. Welcome in, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. How are we doing today? Good morning. Good morning. Hi, 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 everyone. Good morning. Hello. We're doing a bit of a bonus live this morning. Hello, hello. Happy Sunday. Happy Sunday. We don't have any huge news, all right? Usually when I come on, everyone's like, what? We don't have any huge news. Coffee chat, exactly. But I wanted to talk about Project 2025 this morning just a little bit. I have just a little bit of time. So, oh, thanks, Gloria. I appreciate that. How do you bankrupt a casino? Great question. You could ask Mr. Trump. Mr. Trump would know. Oh my goodness. Hello, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Hi everybody. Hello, a little bit bonus live today, everyone. I like surprises. Yay! Yay for surprises. Uh, really a big number today. Well, oh my goodness. Good morning. Hello, hello, hello. So I am just doing a bit of a bonus, live today, just to kind of talk a little bit about Project 2025 this morning, just to chat, just to do a Q&A. My posts are kind of coming out pretty slowly because I'm having a bit of trouble getting some of my posts out. So I thought, well, let's just talk about it. I read through chapters 1 through 20, so I figured that would be enough to at least have a discussion. There are 30 chapters total in Project 2025, so the last 10 chapters have to do with the economy, but the first 20 chapters I have read through, so I'm able to talk about that. My goodness. So, who doesn't like a bonus? I know, right? I know, I know. Hello, Richard. Thank you. See Marie, good morning. Good to see you. But welcome in. I tried to read it and it was difficult. Exactly. It really is difficult. It is. And I think it's good to not just read it, but also do, questions and answers about it. I know a lot of people have questions about Project 2025, and there are lots of clips of people reading it, but sometimes it's hard to understand. So I thought this morning I would just come on and say, yes, Monica, I can, absolutely, absolutely, I can post this as well. But I thought I would just come on and see what people's questions are. Again, I've read the first 20 chapters. There are 30 total. So I've read 1 through 20 at this point. So I cannot speak to the last 10 chapters yet. Huh. But I can talk about those first ones. So hello. Thanks for the gifts, everybody. That's very sweet of you. So Project 2025 is making the rounds on everything now. Finally, people are talking about it, which I think is great. But I think there are some misunderstandings about what's going on with Project 2025. There are some not misunderstandings that are quite frightening, but there are some misunderstandings. So I thought I'd just come on and see if I could clarify a few things. What surprised you about what you've read so far? Great question. I'm not really sure if I've had really any surprises. The one thing I've noticed is how the message is the same over and over and over again. The message is, immigration, getting rid of a whole bunch of people, and immigration will solve everything. That's one of the biggest problems with how they go through everything. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be school lunches, and school lunches are an issue because of immigration. So that's one thing that is like, what? It's a lot. Oh no, am I freezing? No, no. Oh, I hope I'm not freezing. Project 2025 for Dummies. Yeah, yeah. How long have you practiced law? Uh, let's see. How long? 20 years? 20? Has it been 20? We count. What year is it? 2024. Yeah, it's been 20. No, you're not. Yeah, I think if I am freezing, just go on out and come back in again. I have updated everything here, so I should be okay on my end. But yeah, so I think that's one of the biggest things when it comes to got my lot. No, I was the youngest in my class. I will say that. I will say that. I will say I was quite young, and I really went through college quickly. So that is a bit true, but it feels like 100 years. Oh, I know. This last week was like 5,000 years. It seems like, but oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yes, I'm licensed in the Central Time Zone. I don't give away my actual location, but I do say I'm in the Central Time Zone. So, yes, yeah, Boxer Mom, I know. Yeah, good morning, good morning. So, one of the questions that I did get was what was one of the most surprising things about Project 2025? And again, I've read through chapters 1 through 20, so I thought we could do a Q&A on those kinds of questions. But I would say too, one of the misunderstandings when I was doing my live last night, we were talking about capital punishment, and someone had mentioned that Project 2025 had a particular kind of capital punishment that they were advocating. And I said, well, wow, I must not have gotten to that part yet because I had not seen anything about that. And so, reading through more, everything that could have been capital punishment, like, no, they don't, they don't have a particular stance on a particular kind of capital punishment, everybody. So I thought, wow, we've got some misunderstandings. Let's clarify it. The manifesto is pretty awful, everyone, and it's really bad. It's bad. In my opinion, I think it's very detrimental to how our government works as well as to the country. So I think it's pretty awful in its own right. Like, we don't have to add any more awful to it. But I thought, why not? Why not talk about it? Why not talk about it? Oh, it is. It is bad, everyone. It is. And again, I've read through 20 chapters, and there are just a lot of things included in it regarding the nuclear family and how things are supposed to look and what they want the basic dismantling of the Constitution. I agree, Frank. I agree. I mean, just what they want the country to look like and what do we need to do in order to make that happen. And that's frightening. Yes, C. Marie, loss of funding for almost everything. The funding would be cut for all federal assistance programs overall. 2 weeks to read it, and I read, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, I've only made it to chapter 20. There's 30 total, but it's a lot. It's really a lot. Yeah, and I did see Mr. Trump saying that he, again, was not supporting this kind of radical ideology. But again, in every single chapter, they mention putting back into place his executive orders and putting back into place what he had wanted to do in his first time there. So even if, you were like, oh, well, I guess he didn't know anything about it. Like, that's fine. But what the manifesto is to implement his programs, like the ones he already had, So that's really confusing to me that they're like, oh, I don't know anything about it. I'm like, well, it's wanting to implement your plan. So, like, your executive orders, the things that you had set out, and buying All American all the time, and different bans that were on different people traveling and immigration. All of that was already in place with Mr. Trump. It's just how to make it happen quicker and more dramatically. So none of this is like, oh, wow, I can't believe that's happening. Like, that was your executive order, sir. Like you already tried it, man. They're just trying to redo it again. So, I think it's good to clarify that these are already executive orders Mr. Trump had done that they want to re-implement. Right, right. A federal employee is detrimental to all citizens, especially marginalized. Absolutely, Daryl. And for federal employees, Mr. Trump had an executive order that did a freeze, right, on hiring new, and there are all kinds of freezes going on and trying to reduce the size of the federal civil service. And it was a huge executive order for anyone that remembers. And in Project 2025, they're saying we want that back. We want to put that back and we want to make it bigger than it was. We want to do more. Right. No, the executive order regarding that was not deemed unconstitutional for that. Provisions of enforcement outlined in 2025 past civil rights laws have a few teeth. No, they're not. They're not setting out enforcement other than if you don't agree with the president and the executive plan, then you would lose your job. You would lose your job on that. Isn't good. Small doses to be accepted. Yeah, well, it's not. It's not good. It's not good, Paula. I don't think it's good for the country. I don't think redesigning the Constitution, I don't think is okay. What's the reason for getting rid of mass federal employees? Because that's a great question. One of the big things in Project 2025 is that they think that the people who have been working in the federal government for a long time, we're all, oh, thank you, Lisa. They're all supportive of the left. They're all liberals. And so if you're a career federal employee, you're leaning left, and that means they need to get rid of everybody and start fresh. And that's the premise, is that, we got to kind of get rid of everyone because we don't know where your loyalty is, if your loyalty is to the left or to the right, which, they're dancing around the issue, but that's what they're saying. They're saying, all the political appointees, of course, are done when the new president comes in. That's how it's always been. But this time it would be federal employees that have been there that's their lifetime job. And they're like, well, we think you all lean left, so you need to go. But they aren't. Oh, I know, coffee drinker. I know. There's just a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of not false information, I would say misunderstanding of who the people are that are the support staff. They're calling it the bureaucracy is what they're calling it, but the career people who have worked in the federal government, for their whole lives. There is this complete misunderstanding, I think, from Mr. Trump's first time as president. So it's just really yikes. It's a lot. It's not great. All right. It's not great, everybody. Have you read Agenda 47? So I've gone through Agenda 47, and it's, to me, like the highlights and more of the talking points. So Project 2025 has to do with the executive branch, and I think we may be losing sight of that, everyone. This has to do with, yes, that's right, they want to fire them all. It has to do with the executive branch power. So the executive branch only has a certain amount of power. Now, Agenda 47 is, I've got big plans, I've got things I want to see happen for the country, whatever. But Project 2025 is specific to the offices in the executive branch, what kind of power and control goes on there, and specific to what we're going to do starting day one. So I think that's important to remember with Project 2025. So Agenda 47 is broader. I think they've got more of a broad situation going on there. But yeah, it's pretty much, it's the same, just broader. Yeah, so, and I think that's one of the misunderstandings with Project 2025. It it's not that it can't be completely detrimental, because it is, but I think people may be under underscoring how completely changing of the government it would do. So some are saying, "Wow, this is really awful and it's extreme." True, true, but it would change the structure of the executive branch, and I mean that's not something that you can, untangle quickly. So that's a part of it that's can't, I think, should be really emphasized here, is this fundamental shift in the executive branch. Right, right. So yeah, so this morning I just wanted to do a general Q&A overall of what questions people have, of how it works, what it's actually saying. We give overreaching powers to the executive branch. Right, right, right. Life changing shift, country changing shift. It would be a country changing shift. It would shift from this idea of, uh, you know, even though you work in the executive branch, you still have your own mind. You still have your own way that you want to go about things. You still have your own identity, to complete faith loyalty to whomever is president. So rather than it being a group of people sitting together at a cabinet and talking about ideas and hashing things out, it would be more of the president sits and tells you what you are to do and you do it. So that's a pretty significant change, and kind of, again, restructuring from this kind of elected executive branch situation to more of a monarchy situation. So security and disability benefits. So, right, they're not for that. They're not for Social Security and disability benefits. So those would be reduced. The departments would be that handle that would be shrunk and moved differently, moved to different places. So it's really about how they can reduce social benefits. And I think that's a fair way of putting it. But social benefits are set out through Congress. So the president can't actually reduce the money and those kinds of things because it's congressional. But with Project 2025, it would be, how can the president put enough pressure on Congress to make Congress change the laws? So that's really where, again, the teeth are. What's so worrisome about Project 2025? Right, the president can't just take away your disability benefits. The president doesn't have that authority or power. But the president and his people can pressure Congress enough to actually change the statutes for disabled children. So that's going to be tough because it's in multiple places, Allie. What they've done is they've broken all of the executive departments down by chapter. So I would say look at the Human Services chapter, look at the Department of Education chapter. Those will kind of set it out more and explain it. But all you need to do when you're looking for a particular topic is to go and say which executive agency is in control of that. Absolutely, you're welcome, Allie. Which agency is in control of the topic that you're looking for, and then you go in and read through that. He says he doesn't know his loyalties. Well, I mean, again, if he knows or he doesn't know, it's all about his executive orders and not his plans, what his plans were. So, I mean, they're citing his executive orders. So I don't know. It's like, oh, I don't know what they're saying. Well, they're saying what you said, like a lot. Health and Human Services, right. Yeah. So each of the Kristen. So each of those executive departments are what goes into the details of what that they're planning to do. But, back again to the disability benefits. Again, the president can't just take that away. But what they're proposing here is that there's this loyalty to the president so that he would go and debate with Congress and say, you need to take away Social Security and disability benefits the way I want them done, or I'm going to make things difficult for Congress. So it's a way to bully Congress to do what he wants. So those benefits will be affected because of him bullying Congress into how to make it changed and how to change it. Yeah. That's how you know it's real. True story, Frank. Oh my gosh, I know. Veterans benefits in the military, great question. There are a couple of chapters on that. There's one chapter just on veterans, and then there's a whole chapter on the military. So those are two different chapters. The military, they've gone through each different branch to restructure what they want to change, with who's in charge and the restructuring process of each of the pieces, like the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and so on. Coast Guard is like frowned on, so I guess the Coast Guard's like, get rid of them. But and then when it comes to the vets benefits, those are in further into Project 2025, and we've got a shift of how benefits are awarded, as well as how they who's in charge of it and how to get them. So we have a way of looking at it where they're changing who qualifies for those benefits versus how they go about the qualifications right now. Military loses their housing allowance. Almost every veteran loses. Yeah, the way that the benefits are right now would completely change. That would be done, and the benefits would be shifted to what the president thought would be the best for benefits. That's the other thing, is that it's completely up to the president to decide that. So rather than having, someone who's an expert on our veterans and our military, rather than that, the person loyal to the president would say, well, I don't know, or let's do this, let's do that. And then the president would say, all right, that's how we're going to change our benefits. So the whole idea behind veterans benefits is it's whatever the president wants to do. Right, Suze, right. So, and that's kind of one of the issues here, is that we don't have someone running that has a lot of military experience or any. So they don't really have the knowledge of what's best. So the knowledge that they're getting are going to be from loyalists as opposed to the best people in the field. So, that's a huge thing. So the best people in the field might say, our veterans need this, our veterans need that, for housing allowances, for different kinds of benefits. But that's not going to matter, because what's going to matter is what his loyalists are saying to him. And they could all have their own personal goals and plans. Fires everyone that disagrees with him. Exactly right, Mandy. And that's what they're saying here. And over and over and over again throughout Project 2025, it's saying you have to uphold the president's agenda. It doesn't matter if you're the FBI, if you're the CIA. It doesn't matter if you're the Department of Transportation. Whatever the president says is what is going to happen. And if you don't agree, then you're gone. Yeah, it is scary, Nancy. It is scary. It is terrifying. It is terrifying. And, if you look at it individually, at each piece individually, it's worrisome. You're like, what? What's happening? Nuclear family? But when you look at it as a whole, again, it's this way of the executive branch, of the president himself, to bully Congress into doing what he wants. And the decision ultimately is up to him as opposed to other people in the cabinet. So it's a true shift from how our government works now to something else. I think the law will matter, but what's happening is they're going to change the law. They're going to fundamentally change the law, and how our checks and balances work, essentially. And by kind of using micromanagement, yeah, and it's all about the president. It's all about what the president wants. So whomever's on his cabinet, whoever's running the departments, whatever the any of our agencies are doing, that all has to be pre-approved through the president. How minorities' rights will be affected. So the overall consensus, again, Project 2025, I've read chapters 1 through 20. There are 30. The last 10 are on the economy. But Project 2025 overall is not a fan of civil rights. And some of the best examples I can give you is kind of undoing the processes that Obama has put into place, that have been put into place in order to fight against being discriminated against. So if you are being discriminated against, a lot of the ways you can go about having that taken care of is through agencies. So if you're in the Department of Transportation, you're being discriminated against, then you work your way up through that agency. But instead, those options would be eliminated. So any kind of a civil rights issue in our schools and so on, when it comes to race, and especially if it comes to anything dealing with LGBTQ, that's gone. That's completely gutted. And some of the harshest, I think, some of the worst language has to do with that set of people. Set of people meaning those people covered by anti-discrimination laws. All right, so we've got a lot of categories within discrimination. All right, let me be clear. And that particular category of people are going to get hit the hardest. And again, the language is absolutely atrocious. They're obsessed. I think, Travis, that's a good way of saying it. They are absolutely obsessed. DEI will be tossed. Not only that, but anyone using DEI will lose federal funding. So if there's any schools or any places trying to use DEI, then that money's gone. Your money's gone. Your federal money is all gone. Now you'd say, well, Congress is in charge of the money. That's where it turns into this kind of bully situation where the president bullies Congress to pull that money. Well, I mean, segregation is one of the questions, but they're just not even acknowledging. They're not even acknowledging different groups of people. Yep, people. Yeah, with disabilities. Yeah, and what kind of disabilities too. I think that there's a question of what's an actual disability, because some of the disabilities, there's a disagreement on that. And again, rather than having professionals talk about it, it's going to be who's loyal to Trump. Congress should be fired. They are elected. Can you speak on no-fault divorce? Absolutely, Michelle. Okay. So there have been a lot of questions on this no-fault divorce issue, all right? No-fault divorce basically means that you get divorced and you don't have to prove one party is at fault. You just have to say, look, we have irreconcilable differences. The marriage is broken beyond redemption. We're done. So we can no longer have this marriage. It's just not going to work. So when we're talking about no-fault divorce in Project 2025, they are talking about this idea in general of marriage as a nuclear family. The traditional Christian concept of marriage is what they're promoting. That means then the inference is no divorce, right? And of course, no fault divorce would not be appropriate. So they do not set out in Project 2025 no fault divorce. They do not say that in Project 2025. What they say is that traditional Christian marriage is what should happen between a man and a woman. That is what we need to make this country great again. So the language itself is not specific to that, but it is the inference in there, just to clarify that. King of the castle, yeah, I think that's a good way to say that. It's a good way to say that. You think civil war is possible? I think we've kind of already been fighting that a little bit. I think we've definitely got different ideologies that have been fighting since 2016. So I don't think we'll ever have something that looks exactly like the Civil War we had before. I think it has different ways of looking these days. How long would it take to happen if Trump was in? So things are starting on day one. Day one. So the last time when Mr. Trump was elected, there was a period of time where he didn't realize he needed to appoint a whole bunch of people. He needed to hire a whole bunch of people. So we had kind of this time to catch our breath for a few months, but this time it's literally day one. Day one, that 24-hour period will be very, very busy. Will be incredibly busy. Craig, so, he's been charged. He's a charged defendant, so he's a mister to me. So, and he's also been found guilty by a grand jury, or probable cause, as well as a criminal jury. So, President Trump doesn't exist for me. It's Mr. Trump, because that's what we call defendants. So I'll be clear about that. That's just what we do in the legal system. Lovely face. Oh, thanks. Thank you so much. Red wave. Well, maybe everybody has that right to go out and vote. Yeah, hired people without qualifications, and it was odd, but now I understand. And he'll do that again, Paula. He'll do that again, only now he has a list of people loyal to him who know how to go in and make the changes that they want to have changed. Yeah. Mike Johnson holding up the election. Well, and you should be. Quite frankly, everybody, we should all be worried about that. So Mr. Johnson, although not a defendant, a complete and total person, already has been part of that. He already thought 2020 shouldn't have turned out the way that it did, and already filed on that. So I have no doubt he will go after the results if they lose in November. Does 2025 say anything about the 19th Amendment? Not specifically, no. It doesn't say anything about specifically for voting rights. It doesn't have a particular take on that, but the overall premise is that we have to follow traditional conservative Christian family values. So if those Christian family values don't involve a woman voting, then the woman should not vote. They do not say specifically we want to take voting rights away. What they say is we want to go back to the original Christian family values. And so whatever that means is how they are expressing it. Vague language just to leave the options wide open. I think they just knew, Michelle, not to use the trigger words. I think they knew about that. They knew that they needed to be careful. And again, that's the problem with Christianity, isn't it? Well, everyone, I'm not trying to mess with Christianity. One of the problems here is that there are multiple different kinds of Christians in Christianity. And so when they're saying that traditional Christian ideology, you have to say, well, what Christian then? And that's one of the biggest problems. Lawyer for Heritage and involved in Hobby Lobby case. Could be Alyssa. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. He is he's a very powerful man who can do a lot of damage. A lot of damage. Not to mention exactly. So, right. Well, in that's the language in Project 2025 is Christian values. So I'm using that language. That's why I'm bringing that in here, because we have the Christian nuclear family is the language that's being used throughout Project 2025. Yeah, good question, Kiki. Good question. Good question on that. It's a think tank with zero to do. Well, it certainly is not a think tank. What? It's not a think tank. This is a manifesto, and you can get as mad at me as you want, but go look up, just in a Webster's dictionary, just a plain vanilla dictionary, go look up what a manifesto is, then read the first 2 chapters, and you tell me that it's not one. Exactly, Catholic, Protestant, exactly. Exactly, Daisy. Because, we had a period, and I think people forget this, we had a period of time where even the Catholic Protestant situation, which is still not over. That huge fight going on is still present. Like, what about the Catholic piece versus the Protestant piece? What about the Baptists versus the not Baptists, the Methodists? There's like a ton. There's a ton of different kinds of Christianity. And so it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem. Right, and that's one of the problems that happened in Ireland, exactly, which is why they had somewhat of a civil war situation going on as well, right? Remember that happening in Ireland? Exactly, Sandy. And I think that's, I think, yeah, yeah, yep. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry, I missed your question. Do you think P2? Oh, thank you so much. Shout out. Oh, that's so sweet. Was written because people that don't read anymore, hidden in plain sight. Could be C. Marie. I think it's fascinating that, I don't know. I guess I kind of look at it the way, and this is probably not very nice, but I look at it like in all of the classic old school like James Bond movies, when all of the villains like gave away their plans. They're like, and then we're gonna get sharks with laser beams. Like, this is Project 2025. That's how I see it. It's just they think, well, there's, I can do whatever I want, and this is a great plan, and everybody should be okay with it because it's amazing. That's their mindset. So they're like, why would we hide a plan that just is for the betterment of the country? Will the Supreme Court stand with the election results? Good question. We've got that case, Texas versus Pennsylvania, where they came in and said, we've got rules regarding elections. And so, one would hope, but I don't know. I mean, we've got 2 Supreme Court justices with articles of impeachment, so it may be beneficial for them for the election to go a certain way. That's kind of an issue if they won't recuse themselves. So it's an issue. Right. I mean, again, it's the whole point is to give complete control to whomever the president is of the United States. And that's what Project 2025 is about. Yeah, is control, is power and control. The departments, the agencies, the executive agencies have a lot of, stuff they do. No, an executive order cannot remove SCOTUS. No, we've got to have an impeachment. They've got to be impeached. That's in the Constitution. How long will it take for articles of impeachment to go through the full process? Great question, Sandy, and I don't know. I really don't know. It has to do with, how long things get dragged out in Congress. Will special counsels be dissolved? They shouldn't be, right? Because that's crazy. That's crazy. So Judge Cannon had a very interesting interpretation of the Constitution, and I guess if her interpretation is correct, but her prior interpretations have not been, so I'm not sure. Have they accomplished since 2016? Great question. They've made some strides. They've made some, but it's ongoing. It's an ongoing. The goal of Project 2025, and they put it in their 4 pillars at the very beginning. They put it right in there. The goal is to transform the United States into a traditional Christian nuclear family society. That's the goal. So anything they can do to step by step make that happen is going to be a plus for them. Judge Cannon being removed, I would say it's 50-50 at this point. It's 50-50. Right. And I mean, again, and as I've said, the Christian ideology of the people involved in Project 2025, not everybody. And that's something I think a lot of people forget about, is that there's lots of different Christianities. There's lots of different takes on that. Don't have to wear uniforms. Well, I don't think they would. Well, if you did have to wear a uniform, you'd have to buy it yourself. And if you didn't, you'd go to jail. Let's put it to you that way. All right? We'll put it that way. But I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't seem like They want any kind of regulation, and I think regulating what somebody wears would be regulation. So they would basically, my opinion, when it would be whatever the Bible says you're supposed to wear is what you should wear. And again, their own kind of Bible. Like, I don't know which Bible either. Is voting the only way to stop this? In my opinion, yes, Shelley. Yeah. The people have to come together and send a message. And the loudest way you can would be voting. So modestly dressing, depending on how you read which section of the Bible. I mean, there's some sections of the Bible where you can't show your hair. You're not allowed to show your hair because that's offensive, or you can't wear pants, right? Are we back to the days where women can no longer wear pants? I mean, that's where we're heading here. And I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to like stir anything up. I'm just saying that's kind of where we're at here with this. Oh my gosh. So I just wanted to say, again, if you go to the foreword, we've got promises that are set out in Project 2025. Just the foreword, everyone. If you are curious about what the plan is and whether or not it really is this conservative Christian fundamental ideology, it sets it out in the foreword. And you can read it and you can decide for yourself, like, well, maybe that doesn't sound so bad, or that isn't as extreme as what I thought it was. Make your own decision. Make your own decision. Even if you read nothing else, if you just read through that foreword, it'll give you a pretty good idea of the theme of Project 2025. Yes, and of course vote. Of course vote. Voting is very important. Voting is very important. Clean air and water regulations, right, which lots of people have been trying to do that for a while. In fact, the Endangered Species Act, a lot of people don't realize this, has been under fire for decades. I'm surprised we still have anything left of the Endangered Species Act. Yep, the FDA would be out. They don't want labels on the food anymore. They're like, well, the FDA shouldn't be the ones to decide that. Shouldn't have labels on your food. They can just do whatever they want. Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Oh, yeah. The Endangered Species Act, they're like, nah. If there's something in the way of business, if there is an endangered species in the way of a corporation making a big company and doing a big factory, they're like, that animal needs to go. Needs to go. Get rid of it. Yeah. I know. Well, the food poisoning. Oh, I know. Yikes. I've got things to say about that. The FDA, yes, the USDA would be, forget about it. Forget about it. And school lunches, if you can't pay for it yourself, that's just too bad. No school lunches. That all needs to be done. So we've got that situation where there are some states that are saying, well, if you can't pay, you can't pay. You don't get to eat. They're wanting to do that federally. So if there are children in school that can't afford lunches, that's too bad. They're like, that's too bad. That funding's all gone. Yeah, I don't know. Saying the left will in the Supreme, I don't know. A lot of things have gone kind of off the rails here. Because we have extremists in both parties. I don't think extremism on either side is good. All right, I just don't. I think that extreme on the left can be just as harmful as the extreme on the right. But everyone needs to kind of move a little bit away. Children marrying, yes, that's still a thing. That's still, it makes me mad. That's still a thing, yes, with parental permission. Now, you don't need the child's permission or consent. You just need the parents. Makes me angry. Swift in foster care. Yeah, well, nothing's swift in foster care. If you've ever worked in the system, nothing is swift in foster care. And, you're lucky if anything gets done in foster care and done appropriately. Yeah, I mean, and again, it's not a free lunch for everyone. It's just for free lunches. There's programs that funds lunches for children who are from families that can't afford lunches, and they're like, we need to go. That we don't need to be funding that kind of stuff. So we don't need to be paying for kids to have lunch. That's not something that our money should be going towards. Our money should be going towards, more fighter jets. Yeah, I mean it's they set it out. They set it out in that. Well, Craig, it's in Project 2025. Yep, just go to the USDA, go to the Department of Education, go into those chapters and read it. And you can read it. That's it. I mean, that's it. Yeah. Too much. Right, right. I mean, the Christian values is like, and it's, particular Christian values. Let me just double check. Let me get out the page here. Let me see if I can read it. Because I think it's important to note. What about birth control? So, all right. Hold on here a second. I'm trying to find. Hold on. I'm trying to find out specifically what it's saying here. Hold on. I think I can answer that if I can find the proper page citation. All right, here we go. Promise number 4 is to secure our God-given individual right to enjoy the blessings of liberty. And that's on page 13. And the founders talking about the pursuit of happiness. So this pursuit of happiness has to be free to live as his creator ordained to flourish. That's a direct quote, all right? So when we're talking about birth control, all right, you have to look to the Bible. What does the Bible, or these people's Bible, again, I don't know which Bible they're using, they're not citing it. These people's Bibles, what does the Bible say about birth control? I mean, I guess we can just do in general, just the Christian Bible. It can be, most versions would say probably the same thing. I've not read 50 versions of the Bible. Right. Well, I mean, let's look at the Catholicism, right? In Catholicism, we're looking at the two major Christian religions, Protestant versus Catholicism. What does Catholicism say about that? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's what you got to look at it. That's how you got to look at it. Be fruitful and multiply. Yeah. So anything that prevents that, against natural law, right? And this whole idea of natural law is kind of like, thank you for that. Or if you're not a Christian, well, I mean, that's fine. You don't have to be a Christian. But what they're saying is that the traditional Christian rules in the Bible are what need to govern the United States. And when it comes to voting for women, when it comes to birth control, when it comes to whatever, all of that is according to what the Bible says. Is natural law talked about? Yes, it is. And in many of these chapters, they talk about in accordance with the idea of having a proper Christian society. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, this is a religious dogma. I mean, that's the thing. And they're careful because you don't want to come in and say like, "Oh my gosh, we want religion to control everything," because that would be in conflict with the First Amendment. So you don't want to say that. But what you want to say is we need to go back to the original God-given individual rights that are set out. I'm not sure if it's Catholic or Protestant again, but it's, I mean, it's, yeah, they don't say it. But it's clearly Christian. Is it Catholic? I don't know. Maybe it is Catholic. I just don't know. The pursuit of the good life is found primarily in family, marriage, children, Thanksgiving dinners, and the like. Many find happiness through their work. Think of dedicated teachers of healthcare professionals you know, and so on. I have to be careful about how much I read because they're kind of after me here on Project 2025. Yikes, that's why I'm doing a Q&A today. Do they address the Second Amendment laws? No, no. They don't specifically set out anything on that. No. And again, I've read the first 20 chapters. I've not read the last 10. There's 30 total. So as of the first 20 chapters, they don't set out anything on that. So what if a man's unable to have children? Great question. And, that would be appropriate grounds to kind of get rid of the fella. But the whole goal here is that everybody needs to get married and, have children. And they're very clear about that. They're very, very clear about that. Hear about Hawk and TikTok. I'm not sure. He's on his backup account. I knew that. Right. Submissive to their husband. Is their website searchable? A bit. It's not particularly user-friendly. You got to really kind of scroll through stuff. But I know a lot of other sites have made easy searchable ways of going through it. Polygamy? No, polygamy is not in there. They're pretty clear. A man and a woman, a husband and a wife. So polygamy is not set out in there because that's not, that's not in the Bible they're using. Again, I don't know which Bible they're using. Mass reporting. Oh, I know. Yeah, I know. I'm mass reporting. Yeah, stay married. Exactly. Stay married. So, and make it, if you get married, you have to stay married. And that's just how it is because that's in the best interest of your child. That's what's best for everyone's child. So, yeah. Yeah, now they don't say that divorce isn't allowable. They don't say those words, but they do say that family is the key here to society. And the family that they're saying is the key is a man and a woman married and having children. That's what they're saying. Under 18 without a parent. Right. Ugh. Really late last night. Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Oh, May, those are gone. There's no, that's, I would say immigrants and LGBTQ rights are just shockingly awful language regarding it. Shockingly awful language. They don't hold back on their language for those two groups of people. Meaning the language is so clear of how repulsive it is that and how wrong it is that it's difficult to read through any of those sections. Where can I view this? It is online. Yeah, but redefining definitions, redefining any kind of rights, redefining, going through actually for anyone who has been accused of harming groups of people and dismissing the suits, dismissing the complaints is another thing. They're saying, oh, if someone had a civil rights complaint because of being in the LGBTQ situation, discrimination, we need to reassess that and get rid of their complaints. Dismiss complaints that are already filed. Oh, it's a lot. It's a lot, everybody. It certainly is. It really is. Yeah, they're not playing around. So all of the DEI language would be changed or go back to how it's supposed to be. Any of the rights that have been slowly gained, and again, there's work to be done on that, but gone. Any language about removing women's right to vote or have our own bank accounts. So the language is not specific to that. The language on anything is really not that specific other than getting rid of, I'll give you an example. Like there is an Equal Education Act that Biden has just put back into place. All right. So I forgot the name of it. Hold on, everybody. Let me grab it. Let me see if I can grab it here. What's it called? The Women's Educational Equity Act. All right. So we have acts in there in order to kind of protect for discrimination. And what they're saying is we're wasting educational dollars by doing that. So no funding for any of those acts. No funding when it comes to like the Civil Rights Title IX, Title VII, where there's discrimination issues going on, the funding's gone. So they're not specifically saying we're going to take your right to vote away. What they're saying is we don't think basically that the Civil Rights Acts are useful, so we're going to eliminate funding. Now, again, Congress is in charge of funding, right? So you might say, well, how can the president take away funding? Because this is an executive branch. It's because they're saying the president would bully Congress to a point where they're like, you need to do what we tell you to do, Congress. So you need to take money away from these federal programs, or you're not going to get anything done. So this idea, we've kind of done this before, where they kind of debate back and forth, the executive and the legislative. Like, if you do this, then I'll do this, and there's negotiations. But what Project 2025 says is there's no negotiations. Congress does what we say, or we don't do anything at all. And it's very clear. It's very clear when it comes to legislative acts. You do what we tell you, or we're not going to do anything in order. Like, what can the president do? The president cannot sign bills. The president can veto bills all the time. So that's exactly what it is. What's the name of the act again? Let me pull it. So the Women's Educational Equity Act. So that had kind of been pulled back during the Reagan years. And then we have just had a re-emergence of it. And so what they're saying is those kinds of acts, that's just an example of what I'm talking about. Those kinds of acts should not be funded. Yeah, extortion's a good word. But we've had kind of this gentleman's agreement is literally what they call it in political science, where Congress and the executive branch, we kind of work on things, but that's over. That's over. Any kind of negotiation or friendly discussions, that's done. It's whatever the president wants, the president gets. Congress either agrees or the president holds up everything that Congress wants to do. That's really the harm with Project 2025, is not that they can come through and take away your right to vote. What they can do is they can pressure Congress far enough to pull laws out of the books that we already had. That's really one of the issues. No checks and balances, exactly. And it specifically says that. And it says if Congress doesn't want to comply, then we need to put pressure on Congress. And then it sets out different ways you can do that. Different ways to pressure Congress. How to make it so Congress can't get any work done. Which is kind of where we're already at a little bit. We already were at before. When we saw Congress fighting the president and nothing was getting done, yeah. Yes, Jackie. Yes. Anyone covered by the Civil Rights Act, yeah, you're gonna have troubles. You're gonna have troubles. Anyone covered. And the Civil Rights Act has a long reach. So in education and equal opportunity, in labor relations, whatever it is, when it comes to civil rights, that is going to have a significant diminishing moment. That's what they're saying. And you'll see it time and time again. And they'll even set out which title they're going after. Title VII, Title IV, Title IX, whatever it is, of the Civil Rights Act. They're like, forget it. We just don't need that. So, yes, Johnson is definitely on team villain, in my opinion. Available at my Canadian embassy. Murray. How about interracial marriage? So far, interracial marriage, so long as it's between a man and a woman, I think is still okay under Project 2025. Just because a man and a woman is the key here. It's frightening here without, I know. Yes, Title I. Anything under the Civil Rights Act, anything under that is going to be out. So disabilities, when they're talking about disabilities, they're talking about restructuring, reducing funds, and figuring out, like, redefining disabilities. Like, there's certain disabilities that have been set out, and if a disability has anything to do with the LGBTQ plus world, all right, if there's any kind of a disorder, or that's not the right word, if there's anything that's related to that, it's out. So those wouldn't even be included. They tried to change leaving the country. I don't think so. I think they are fine with everybody leaving. They just don't want anybody coming in. In fact, they're big fans of getting rid of people. So I haven't seen anything like that within the any of the border patrol or ICE chapters. They haven't said anything about that I've read it. That I've read. Again, I've only read the first 20 chapters. Well, right. I mean, there are several disabilities or several health issues that can be part of elements of the LGBTQ plus world. Is what I'm saying here about Native American culture. Will they keep their reservations? So reservations aren't on the table, but surprisingly, Lisa, when it comes to Native Americans' schooling, funding, how they are treated, are going to be changed. In fact, a lot of under the Department of Education, there's a piece in there for Native American or Indigenous children, and they're saying, we don't need that anymore. Just put everything that there has to do with any of our Indigenous people, put that all over into Indian Affairs. Anything else and anywhere else all needs to just be consolidated into one place. So rather than having any kind of specialties to help with our Indigenous people, it should all just be under one umbrella. And whatever they do, they do. And they certainly don't need the amount of funding that they've had, is the other premise. Veterans, yeah. Yeah, veterans that's a tough piece. Tough piece. Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to be offensive when I'm talking about disabilities and LGBTQ. I'm not trying to be offensive, but when we're talking about health issues, all right, is what I'm talking about. Yes, idea and special education. Yes, they do in the educational department. Department of Education, they want to be done with, first of all. And then again, any kind of funding for any kind of behavioral problems, I think, is one of the big issues. If there's behavioral problems, that's not something that needs to be considered. More of that traditional kind of problem, special needs, versus any of the other kind of like psychological or things that aren't a disability that you can see. Maybe is a better way to put it, all right? So if you can't see the disability, they're saying it should not weigh as heavily as the ones that you can see. It's just that very conservative ideology, right? When it goes against the science behind psychiatry and psychology. Anything on healthcare. So they want to rework the Affordable Care Act, get rid of it if possible. Again, promoting this idea of the Affordable Health Care Act should not, they've tried in court to get it overturned, right? Multiple times. There have been multiple lawsuits and they've lost them. So at this point, what they're trying to do is go forward and pursue that again. Now, the Affordable Care Act does not, and how it functions is not an executive function. So the funding behind it, the actually having it is not executive. That's congressional, all right? But they're saying to Congress, you need to pull the Affordable Care Act or we're not going to pass any laws, all right? So that's one thing. The other thing is we do have different agencies that help to administer different pieces of that. And so any of those kind of overseeing the Affordable Care Act, those things need to be consolidated, reduced, or unfunded. Yeah, less Medicare. So any of our social programs, I guess, the social programs from the New Deal, they're like Get rid of it. It should be gone. It should be gone. They want to restructure, figure out what parts of Medicare can stay, what parts can go with Medicare, and who qualifies as well. So the qualification elements. There's a whole chapter on it. They go into a full chapter on health and human services. Be certain to you that this will become a reality. Well, it's deeply concerning. It's deeply concerning. It's deeply concerning. I don't want to see the United States go back to the Puritan days or go back to the fundamental Christian days. So for me, I find it very concerning. I'm surprised they're not just getting rid of Medicare. Well, I don't think they could. I think they recognize that complete elimination of Medicare would have been too inflammatory. So, and a lot of things are just kind of picked apart. So even they're saying, well, if we can't get rid of the Department of Education, then let's do this instead, which would be, to pull funding from it via pressure through Congress and, consolidating it or removing different authority. Yeah, well, it's too much. Medicare, and as well as a lot of our social programs, I have yet to see one where they have said any of the funding should be increased. The overall theme is there's too many benefits. Too many people are getting too high of benefits. And so that needs to be reduced, again, through Congress, by bullying Congress, which is what that fundamental change in our government is at issue here. Huh. Oh, that's a good question, Maybe. I'm not sure. I think I saw a cartoon where the Canadians are like holding the door. They're all pushing against the door for Americans, like, don't come in. Like, yeah. So, I mean, it's a problem. And it's not just a list of everything that they want to get rid of. It's the process of removing what they want to remove. And the process is the president has loyal people who are on his cabinet, not people who are educated in the area. That's not important. What's important is that you're loyal. And the heads of departments and everyone who works in the federal government needs to be loyal to the president and part of his plan to go forward. And if you're not, you're fired. And it doesn't matter if you're a political appointee or not. The first day, they're going to just fire basically a whole bunch of federal employees and replace them with loyalists. Now, then when it comes to Congress, right, then the executive branch, rather than negotiating, is going to be saying to Congress, it's my way, or we're not going to do anything to help. So, because a lot of times you have to have a negotiation between congressional plans and executive plans in order to come to the middle and figure out how to negotiate. So that's what they're saying. They're saying then Congress needs to do what we want, or, we're not going to give them what they want. Racially biased, by the radical right. Most of us on the right don't agree with it. It is radical, but Michelle, I would carefully remind you that in almost every chapter, they are saying they want to reinstate Mr. Trump's executive orders. So that's the other thing here is a lot of it is, radical, fine, but how they want to implement it is to say back to executive order, whatever, 38, whatever, that needs to immediately be put back into place or whatever. And so they have all of these executive orders that would immediately go back in that have been withdrawn, and also going forward on his policies he wasn't able to do before. So I think this is a plan for Mr. Trump's ideologies that he had through his executive orders and a lot of what he had for plans to go forward. Now, there's definitely extras, and there are definitely some extreme pieces added, but they're all based off of Mr. Trump. So that's what's really interesting here. I mean, even just in the first chapter, you go to the first chapter, which is the White House office and the redesign, and they're talking about how Mr. Trump did it. And if we go into some of the departments again, they cite directly and quote his executive orders. This is the executive order that we need to have. This is the one that we had with Mr. Trump, and so now we need to have it again. I've got this whole thing in front of me here. I'm struggling to pull out the exact executive orders. But yeah, I mean, they're his executive orders and his plans that he had. So, yeah, and it makes sense because a lot of the people that wrote this were in his cabinet. Ben Carson, I mean, there's a lot of people who were worked for him that wrote these chapters. So each chapter, let me give you an overview of what this is. So this is 30 chapters of this manifesto. We have this big introduction from the Heritage Foundation fella and what their pillars are, what they're trying to do. They have an advisory board, a huge advisory board set out. Then we have the authors. So there are 35 authors, and these authors just come from the different areas of his cabinet. So let me just go through the authors for a second, all right? So let me just share who the authors are, all right? So that you know what I'm saying. We've got Darren Baxt, which Deputy Director, Center for Energy and Environmental and Senior Fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. All right, so he, let's see, he led heritage food and agricultural policy work. Next, Jonathan Berry, Lindsay Burke, David Burton, Adam Kandub, Professor of Law at Michigan State. He served as Acting Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Deputy Associate Attorney General at the department during the Trump administration. I mean, Dustin Carmack he served in the intelligence community as Chief of Staff to the Director of National Intelligence. Brendan Carr, prior to his role, he served as the Federal Communications Commission's General Counsel. So, I mean, Benjamin Carson here, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So, we go through all of these people, but they're all, they're part of his, many of them, most of them, were part of Mr. Trump's, people here. And you can read it for yourself. Like, you don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take my word for it. You just go pull it up yourself. Just look at the authors. 1,000 pages is overwhelming. So just look at the authors and read their little bios that set out what it was. So Donald Devine here, a senior scholar at Fund for America Studies in Washington, D.C. He was President Ronald Reagan's first-term Office of Personnel Management Director when the Washington Post labeled him Reagan's terrible swift sword of civil service for cutting bureaucracy and reducing spending by billions of dollars. He was a professor at the University of Maryland and Bellevue University and is a columnist of an author of 10 books, including his most recent, The Enduring Tension. So there you go. So they're the ones that wrote it. They're the ones that wrote the 30 chapters in here, along with, a few other people like the from the Heritage Foundation. So, I mean, they wrote it. So that's what we're doing here. So he's not a fan, which is, fine, but it goes in and quotes what he's wanting to do. Yeah, Reagan. Oh. Reagan was like, the New Deal, what? We're getting rid of that. Blah. It's out of here. Social programs. We don't need social programs. Forget about it. Oh, you're most welcome. You're most welcome. And again, I'm just kind of doing a Q&A here. I've only read 20 out of the 30 chapters. I've still got 10 chapters to go on the last 10 are on the economy. So that's a bit, huh. It's a bit dry, everyone. It's a bit dry. Yeah, and I don't think that the alarm of Project 2025 is overstated. But one thing, and which I keep saying that people I think are not focusing on as much, is that this is all about the president's enormous power for the president, and then the president having this bully power over Congress. So that's the thing here. We have a situation where they're trying to backdoor basically a monarchy, in my opinion. So that's kind of how it's going here. Why is the media not covering it more? Great question. Great question. And we do have these buzz points like different benefits that would be gone and so on and so forth. But every time you hear that, remember that Congress has the purse strings. So the only way for any of these things to be gone is for the president to bully Congress into removing the funding, which is what they're saying they want to do. Okay? They're trying to say that the president's agenda should be everybody's agenda, including Congress. And if they don't agree, then they're gone one way or another. Sneak in a monarchy. Yeah, I mean, that's it. So, yeah, it's frustrating to see like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? No Department of Education. But then also, like, no Congress that can do anything. Can Congress do an end run around the executive branch? It depends on who is elected. It depends on what happens in the election. Because that there are people fighting in Congress for this to not happen. But if a whole bunch of people get elected and the majorities go the way that they have been, there's not much that can be done because you're going to have an agreement. Yeah. So the biggest harm of Project 2025 is that we have a president whose agenda is followed by everybody, and it doesn't matter. And the most powerful branch of the government is supposed to be Congress. But when you put a whole bunch of people into office who are unwilling to stand up to the president, like right? There are already a whole bunch of them saying, well, whatever Mr. Whatever wants is what he's going to get. Then it's going to be a problem. Right? We're gonna have a problem. Yes. Okay, here we go. I'll have a little sip. My lipstick came off, but it's back. My lipstick's back. It is nice to not have to put so much makeup on with the filter. I do enjoy that. I know, right, Travis? Right? Oh, it's early. I didn't have time to put the full shellac on. Oh, my goodness gracious. So, and I am noticing I am actually at, I know. Well, yeah, I gotta have a little filter on here. It's early. It's early. Well, do we have any final questions here, everyone? I'm going to have to go ahead and sign off. I was just meaning to do a quick Q&A, but it's turned into a lot more than that. I may need to do a few more of these Project 2025 Q&As. I think it's really helpful for people to be able to actually ask me questions about it. So I may do some more of these for sure in the future. Yes, oh my gosh, the moderators are amazing. Yeah, I'm having some problems. Actually, the content I'm making on Project 2025, it's a 50-50 shot as to whether or not I'm going to get a violation on it. And if you get too many violations, right, then you start to get into trouble. So I'm having to be really careful about it. And I can appeal those violations, but it's still, a possibility. I think I had come close to having a problem with my account for about 6 hours. And I tell you what, that's nerve-wracking. So I've got to kind of be careful about that. So with that, uh, really, Tiffany? Oh, I love it. I love it. Yes. So I know I've got backup. Yeah, for sure, for sure. So I'm just being a little bit careful about this. That's why I think doing a live is more helpful. So I will be posting this live on my Tube of You just in a couple of hours, so that this one can be. Yes, you can go over to my Tube of You for sure. For sure. Yes, I'll have those up over there. Yeah, yeah, it's a problem. It's a problem, everyone. But this one will be up over on my Tube of You here in a couple of hours, and I will don't no need to subscribe. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to. You can just and the Tube of You is free, so just go over there and just go to it's the same name as it is here, and you can check it out. So I will have those up later today. Also, I am still set to do my subscriber only chat for tonight, which just is my chat. Everyone can come and hang out still. So I will go ahead and say goodbye for now. But have a great rest of your day, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it. I will see you all later tonight. Take care.